This is my presentation for Texas Hold'em and Lisp. The overall goal of the project was to create a text-based game of Texas Hold'em poker. And so to do that, I set myself up with a couple requirements. I needed to be able to deal cards to a player and a dealer, allow a player to bet after each flip and after being dealt to, allow for folding properly. I mean, like the 3-card, 1-card flips sequence with a shuffled deck that you find in Texas Hold'em. Evaluate the player's hand once all 5 cards are flipped and display the winner. And if the player wins, reward them with chips to continue playing. So how it works is that I was able to use most of my own code from the cards.lisp assignment with player instances, dealer instances, and card instances, and all the methods such as the deck closure and the deal method that came with those things, which was very useful. To start the game, you'll call play, the play function, which subsequently calls game loop, which is a function that loops through a number of game actions that make the game actually play. So, for example, those game actions could be making a new deck, clearing the player's hand to make sure that anything from the previous round isn't carried over when assessing the player's hand value, slot value, asking the player to bet after each card flip or flips, and after they're dealt to, flipping cards as appropriate, evaluating the player's hand and displaying a winner, and asking the player to play again. So once those are completed, ask the player to play again. It'll loop through those game actions again until the player chooses to quit or is out of chips. By far the biggest challenge of this assignment was to evaluate the player's hands. Infrastructure from previous assignments like cards.lisp actually made it easy to make the very base game. It was easy to make it playable, where you could actually you could shuffle, you could deal, you could manipulate the deck and get the player's hand and do things like that. But the way the cards were made, and such as these, when you have things like this, like suits values, it was hard to evaluate the value of a card because of the mixture of text and numbered values here. So how was I able to fix it? Using some help from some online resources, I was inspired to create a type of associative list, a list here in rank. So I can still display nice things like Ace of Hearts or King of Clubs or 9 of Diamonds, say. But I'm able to use a soak to actually grab a value of 14 if it sees Ace. So I can display it using the values list as very nicely, but when I need to get the actual value to evaluate the hand, I can use this rank thing, and that way I was able to split up a couple of the tasks that the code needed to do using different functions, which I'll show on the next slide, and it made my code easier to read, much more efficient, and things like that. So, for example, this is what I'm talking about. Specifically, these 2 functions at the bottom, get, suits, and sort hand, do most of the work. But when I call rank given a certain card, it gets the slot value of val for that card, which is going to be that ace, queen, or king, or jack, and it's going to get the value of that is associated with that string as the numbered value in rank, the rank variable. Similarly with suit, this is just an easy way to grab the suit, the slot value for suit from a card. Oh, excuse me. And what you want to do is you'll want to, when I call get suits is very helpful when you need for finding a flush. It'll map, it'll return a list that maps using the suit function. It'll map all the suits of every card in the hand. So if I don't want to worry about the values, I want to worry about the suits, like I do when I'm looking for five similar suits in a flush. That's what get suits is useful for. When it comes to sort hand, it has the same ideology as get suits, where it maps the ranks of a hand and only has those values, those numbered values, and then sorts them in order, which makes it easier to find a 3 of a kind or a pair or 2 pairs, things like that. And so now I'll go ahead and show a quick demo of the code. So as you can see, I already loaded poker.lisp, and then I'll just have to type in play to play the game. So we're going to start out with a 4 of clubs and a 10 of clubs in my current hand. And so we'll just bet 10 to see how that goes. As you can see, The current pool has doubled just because we're only playing against an AI player, so you can't have anybody bet competitively against you. So we're just going to, if you bet 10, you're going to make an extra 10 back if you actually win the hand. So we actually have a pair here, so that's feeling pretty good. We're going to bet another 10. Nothing new. We'll bet 10, and then I'm going to bet 0 to check for this time. And so I got a pair here from the fours that we saw, and the dealer got junk. So in that case, I win as the player. I'll click 1 to play again, and I'm dealt a new set of cards, 2 queens, and my chips have increased because I won the last game. So I'm going to enter my bet. Let's say we're feeling pretty good, so let's bet 20 with a pair. Then the queen here actually looks like we have a 3 of a kind. So let's go ahead and bet. Well, if I were to bet, if I have 110 chips, if I were to bet 120, it would tell me that is not a valid bet. And so I would have to actually bet lower than that. So let's go ahead and bet 100. And then we continue. So we have still a 3 of a kind, nothing new. We're going to check for this one. And we got a jack, so we're going to check for that one. So I got 3 of a kind. The dealer got junk, so I won. And now I have a lot more chips. So we'll click 1 to actually to play again and see I have more chips because I had won that round. We have a 9 of hearts and a 6 of clubs. I'm going to bet 25 just because I'll check, but let's say I'm feeling unconfident. I'm going to actually fold here. So I'll type in -1 to fold. It says I folded. Ask if I want to play again. I'll click 0 for no. And then we're going to click that, and we're good to go. It says when it doesn't want to play, it closes out the window. So go ahead and continue with this. What I learned through this thing was the using modularity of code through closures. I thought it was really interesting and useful how I was able to have a quote-unquote global variable, or rather a lexical variable deck here. This is what will be learned in the cards at Lisp assignment, but what I found very useful for this, to be able to use the deal show deck function, specifically the deal, but also make deck, which became very useful when using the shuffle function here to create a randomized deck. I also learned to use data structures to my advantage. I was very stuck on the idea that I need to have just one list for the values of the cards and one list for the suits of the cards, but I found it was very useful to, when I was looking online for some help and seeing what other people had done in similar situations, to use an A list here in the form of rank. And so using that in conjunction with the values made it easier to, from a UI perspective, make things look pretty when displaying the information on the screen. But also how to utilize data structures more effectively. So something that I could do if I were to go back actually is use a single list and manipulate this list of rank to find the actual text that I want to use for each time I want to print a card, whether it be Jack, Queen, or any number here, and actually be able to use the A-list rank as the single list of the ranks of the cards, as opposed to having values and rank, which can be a little bit redundant. But that's something that I learned that I think was very useful from what we learned in class. So that's the end of my presentation.